Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well out there, and appreciate you stopping by. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. And check out the Tobin and Leroy Show, weekdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., as we talk all things South Florida sports and silliness. And, cried about the heat a little bit today on the show. But I'm feeling brave now. One of the things that I was talking about was there was finally a report from The Athletic for this guy's kind of been he's been a feature character in Heat Moves, the movie. Like, he's not the main character. I think everybody is looking at this year and their eyes are on Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo. Of course, we got introduced to the DeMar DeRozan episode yesterday. I don't think anybody was really a fan of that. They wanted to breeze through that one and skip it. But I wanted to update this on the channel just because, we were talking about this on a couple of things, because I was asking, like, hey, I don't feel like I've heard anything about this guy, and where do we stand with it? Well, now we actually do have a report on it, and it kind of went through my suspicions of it because of how quiet it was, and that was in regards to Zion Williamson. And Zion Williamson, according to The Athletic, it does not appear like the Pelicans are in any kind of hurry or mood to move him. So William Gilroy, who covers the Pelicans for The Athletic, he did a mailbag, and he reported today, and he said, what odds would you put on a Zion trade this summer? And he said, let's go ahead and get this one out of the way. Yes, the Pelicans were very intentional with the decision to make Williamson the team's on-stage representative at the NBA draft lottery a few weeks ago. And Williamson's decision to be there was also intentional. Yes, it's very unlikely that Williamson gets moved in a trade before the 25-26 season starts. Very unlikely, jeez. There's already been communication between Williamson and his camp and Joe Dumars on several occasions. All parties feel pretty good about where things stand with the Pelicans and where the Pelicans-Zion marriage is heading into next season. Can understand why the decision can be frustrating to fans hoping for a much more thorough reset, but after the Brandon Ingram trade last February and the decision to fire David Griffin at the end of the season, ultimately, it's really difficult to give up on Williamson when he's playing the best basketball of his career the second half of last season. He was in the best shape of his career, and the impact that he made at both ends of the court. If he picks up where he left off and performs, the Pelicans could be one of the wild cards in the Western Conference. Of course, he has to stay healthy. So he does say, though, he says, I'd expect this regime to have far less patience with Zion if he does not stay on the right path or if injuries become an issue again. With Ingram gone and DeJounte Murray silent for the first few months, the team needs Williamson to perform like a superstar. I think also one of the things, the idea, I don't know, there's been some talk about, could the Pelicans and be in any Giannis moves as well, because they control the picks and the Bucks want to get their picks control back. But, I was intrigued very much by the idea of the Heat going on the Zion Williamson path, if that became one. Now, look, this, what the hell is this reporter's name again? This is William Gilroy, who am I saying that right? Guillory. I'm sorry. I apologize, William. William Guillory. Got a little cross-eyed there. But Williams' report here, covering the team boots on the ground, I think if you followed the tea leaves of it, and, I'm not only like looking at Heat stuff for fodder, I'm like looking at the other teams and their players and where they go and that fodder. And I really thought, like, wow, he like reposted a Joe Dumars happy birthday. I don't remember the last time a Heat player even posted. They'll post their players, their teammates' birthdays. I don't remember the last time they posted like an executive happy birthday on there. So that was like the one where I was like, oh man, there is gonna be no Zion derby. Now, I don't know what it means for, John Morant, his draft mate, if that ends up becoming a thing. We know that they're about to, they got a whole deal to do with the Jaren Jackson Jr. number, though I guess it's not going to be as punitive with the whole thing. And isn't it weird that like you have to like almost kind of root for your favorite players to not get awards, because that's going to basically sink your team. It's really a stupid system. The NBA has people, you know what the funny thing is? People do this thing with the NBA about what's ruining the league and what, you know, the whole ratings thing and all that stuff. It's such a chic thing. Like, people are going to do this with OKC and Indiana, which I think is actually kind of a badass NBA Finals. And I think both of those teams, you know, you have one team that's been the best team, and then you have one team that's kind of the cool surprise. And I think that should be anything that anybody's rooting for in sports should love that. If you do love the sport, I don't know why you would root against that. To me, man, I think one of the things that has ruined NBA talk and fans, people love this stuff. And, like, everybody's got to worry about aprons and caps. And there's, like, a dozen people you trust to talk about it and really know what they're talking about. And I'm not one of them. I freely admit I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, that guy, that's their luxury tax, repeater tax, first apron, second apron. What can they do? What mechanisms can happen? Nobody wants to hear that. Numbers, boring. So, you know, I think from the standpoint of, oh, you're rooting against, you almost don't want your players to get awards because they can make more money to cripple your franchise. It's stupid. It's a dumb system. But anyway, it looks like the Zion thing is not going to be a thing. So I think the way I look at it, you know, Zion was kind of like my wild card I was hoping for. They're like, all right, if the Heat don't go this route and this route, if they're not in the game for KD and they're not in the game for Giannis, which maybe they won't be, then at least there was like this fun little wild card that's out there. But I do think that the Pelicans are trying to do this from a position of strength. You know, they're not getting Cooper Flag. They're not in this spot where, like, they're going to get their next face of the franchise right off the bat. And they need Zion to work out. So it's not that I blame the Pelicans. I kind of understand where they're coming from. Like, if you're Joe Dumars and you're coming right in there, unless the ownership is so fed up and they're like, hey, your first order of business, get a move to get this guy the hell out of there. The only way something goes awry is if Zion does something again, and then I don't know, like, who's going to be willing to, you know, touch him and be in that business for him. But, you know, the reports are still coming out. There was a report today on Mark Steinlein from Jake Fisher, just talking about what a crazy summer it's going to be, and that there's going to be a lot of movement, and there's going to be a lot of guys that are, you know, going to be there. It said was quoting a Western Conference executive. He says, it's going to be a crazy summer. There's going to be a lot of movement. Trades are going to be the marquee aspect because there's going to be a number of high-level players available, and there aren't really any marquee free agents, which is true. There's not a lot of marquee free agents. Not a lot of cap space. So this is going to be what it is. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams reshuffling the deck because you have to almost like you have to put your team together and figure out the puzzle. And I think in some ways the Heat are in that spot too with Bam and Tyler. You know, people always want to do this thing in the fan base, which I kind of think is a waste of time, where you're like, it's this guy, whose guy's fault is it, who's the guy? But there is an element to the Heat having to figure out between the two of them, you know, because they're going to be in this position where they got to probably max out both of them, right? Like, Tyler made it pretty clear, if it's not this fall, that he's going to want max money next summer. And that's when Bam's money is going to kick in, and the Heat really do have to ask themselves, all right, are these the guys we're going to bat with? And I think the thing that was good about this summer is at least what Tyler bought you was an element of, I'll be cool this summer. You know, I'm not going to make a stink. We come back from the fall, but that almost puts the Heat on the clock a little bit, because it's like, all right, can you make a move? Now, look, mind you, if he does get extended, it's not like that money's going to kick in next summer. They're just going to lock him up next summer. So they'd still have a summer, I believe, to have some flexibility and make some things happen if they just wanted to do I mean, the fan base will probably, and myself included, need therapy, and my drinking problem would probably just kick up. Because nobody wants to be in run it back mode. And even Riley's said as much. We're not going to run. We're not going to, remember the whole ribbit joke? Ribbit? Pat Riley said they're not going to run it back, which would lead me to believe that in my mind, the run it back is Tyler Bam with some semblance of Wiggins being your third guy. And there's got to be some mix-up there. There has to be some kind of shake-up. And whether that is getting Durant, DeMar DeRozan's not enough of a needle mover for me to be like, oh, just shake it up for the sake of shaking it up, because I'd almost rather would a more settled, as hard as I've been on Andrew Wiggins, I'd almost rather be like, would a more settled Andrew Wiggins do better here? Because in my mind, I think probably, and he's younger, and I think then also he's maybe a piece that a team would be interested in flipping for later on. You bring in DeMar DeRozan, like, what team's going to want to trade for a 38-year-old DeMar DeRozan at $26 million? Like, even though it's not crazy money in today's NBA, like, what does that do for you as an asset? Even if you were to trade Terry Rozier, it's like, great, I'm taking on more years. What is I'm struggling to see anything with that move that makes it. I get DeMar DeRozan is a bucket getter, and especially in regular seasons late, is a guy you could rely on in those spots, and has even killed the Heat in those spots in those Bulls, but it just does. It's just, that's literally a move for a move's sake. Like, that's Terry, to me, that's Terry Rozier all over again. It's like you made a move to make a move. And I don't think I want the Heat at that spot. I'd almost rather them run it back, go full young, and see where the hell this goes. And maybe an acorn shakes loose off the tree. But don't just do that to say you did something. But I when you hear all these moves that are supposedly going to be out there now, we know, I think, who the guys are. I think we got our eyes on who we're hopeful for. Are there any mind-blown ones? I don't know. I mean, like, that's, I think that you look at the teams that were just eliminated, I would say, like, that, everyone looks at Cleveland and it's Jared Allen, Garland. I don't think those are shocking. The shocking thing there would be Spida asking out. The Wolves, Randall, Naz Reid, they got to deal with. The shocking thing there would be, and they already let go of Cat last year. The shocking there would be obviously would be Ant, but they just got A-Rod just control the team. Like I always said, if like the Ant thing becomes a thing, I don't see that thing becoming a thing until like he's 26, not 23. The holy bleep one would be like if Joker was just like, I'm out, and you got to imagine those brothers would love partying down here. But yeah, it's just one of these things. Like, I think the Heat are in this spot where it's like, you'll talk yourself in the game with anybody where other teams are doing this, but the Zion thing maybe being off the table for me. One, I was genuinely intrigued by it because I wanted to see what the Heat could do with a talent like his, even with everything that he's dealt with. That to me would have been a little bit like, oh, we're gonna try and buy low on this all-time physical specimen, talent-wise, with all the baggage, with all the missed games, maybe him being in the best shape of his career, which he did look in good shape. He still looks in good shape. I was worried about the off-court stuff with him being in Miami, if he could handle that. I don't know if he could. But, to not have that safety net there of like an outlet, it's like, all right, well, people keep saying this is going to be a crazy summer, but do the Heat have a lot of options this summer? Because it doesn't feel like it now. Now, there's other reports coming out from like Brian Windhorst that's saying like he expects a lot of moves around draft week. The Heat have a 20th pick. The Heat announced today they're having a draft party at the arena. I'm supposed to be hosting a show that day on the flagship station 56 WQM, where you guys can hear me every weekday 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. with Leroy Horde. So I'm supposed to be hosting a show that night, and I assume, just like last year with me and my guy Solano, we're going to be talking about them taking somebody at 20. But man, it could be a place where like we could be talking about them flipping that for something. So, but we felt, to be fair, we felt that the last two drafts too. We're like, oh, because something could be happening. I remember The last draft, I believe on draft night, it was a pretty newsworthy day because I think that was the day. I think they said it was the first report Bam was going to get an extension, and it was for sure the first report that we got that Jimmy he was going to bypass his player option and just play out the year. And that was the first time we were like, uh-oh. So it was a very eventful draft night. So I'm very intrigued to see where this one goes too.